Okay, friends, it's 1 o'clock, so let me start now. Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to our procurement journey. In this journey, the focus of today is all about contract management and closure. Now, before I get into the detail of the contract management, let us understand the contract. There are three parts of the contract. One is called the pre-contract stage. Second is called contract stage, and third is called post-contract stage. So what we are dealing today is the post-contract stage. That's what we call as contract management. If I have to compare this in our day-to-day life, like you date a girl, that's a pre-contract. Contracting is more like a marriage. And post-contracting is managing the marriage. So this is what we are going to discuss around. Like you can compare in a marriage, up to marriage stage is easier. Managing the marriage is most difficult sometimes. Same thing with the contract also. So you can correlate, I'm just giving a metaphor, just to understand contract management is more like that. The type of problem, the type of issues, how we handle it, that's what you're going to learn around. So those people who are married, I think they will learn a lot from this session. Okay guys, now let me walk through with you today's agenda. Now the scope of the contract management, that's what we're going to talk about. What is contract management? I've given you some metaphor with the marriage, but you get some idea around it. What is contract management? Next one, we're going to talk about the amendment of contracts around. Naturally, I'm talking of complex contract, not the simple one. Nothing goes smoothly. There are bound to be amendments, bound to be changes, either from the supplier side or from the vendor or from the buyer side. Both sides there could be amendment. As a buyer, you want to change the quantity. As a buyer, you want to change the specifications. As a supplier, you want to change the delivery. Or you feel that this is not, you're not able to deliver, you want to make some modifications. But nothing goes smoothly in the complex world. There are bound to be breach. The breach means you have defined something and somebody is going to breach it, not going to follow it. That's what we call the breach of contract. For each breach, there has to be remedies there. So there has to be remedies, the legal remedies around what is for me and what is for the supplier, both sides. You can't say it is only the remedies for the buyer, it is remedies for supplier as well. Next question comes is that, okay, I'm managing a vendor, but how is the performance of the vendor? The contract may take 1 year, contract may take 2 years. How is the performance of the vendors around? If tomorrow I have to give a contract, what lessons I have learned from this contract around, that needs to be called the vendor performance. Performance could be in form of a delivery. Performance could be in form of quality. Performance could be in terms of quantity. Performance could be in terms of service documents. Performance could be in terms of backup support around. That's what we need around. Then the next question comes, the dispute resolution. How do I resolve the disputes? I know there are legal methods available, but there are other methods also available. And if I have to terminate the contract, can I terminate it? What are the liabilities for me for terminations? Now, once the contract has been done, you're receiving the goods. You're inspecting the goods. You're storing the goods and issuing the goods. And then naturally, certainly when the supplier job has been done, there has to be payments. Sometimes payment has to be advance payment. Sometimes there could be price variation clause. You're buying something which the price of the crude oil changes up, the price changes. The price of steel changes, the price changes. So there has to be price variation clause around. Then there's an exchange rate. The person who's supplying you something is importing 40 to 50% of the content from abroad. And dollar, euro, or Japanese yen, the rate versus in rupees changes around. So naturally, who's going to bear the cost part of it? The next is letter of credit around. How do I transfer the payment for importing products? So in short, today's agenda, if I had to take away today's what you're going to learn, we're going to enlighten you on how contracts are managed during the post-award stage till payment to mitigate potential risk. So at the end of the day, the key objective is to mitigate down the whole risks around. Now here again I put down contracting. The guy is scratching his head, but if he scratches too much, he will lose all the hairs. So what we are saying around, guys, if you want to get into contracting, please keep an exit and escape strategy as well. You can't make a contract of $20 million and $50 million and then you find the supplier is not behaving, the supplier is not performing, and you have not put any exit strategy or escape strategy. So there has to be an exit strategy, there has to be an escape strategy. I know there are many lawyers to help you in the companies, but since you are in the business, you have to put your ideas around what potential possibilities could happen. And those possibilities the lawyer will convert into the legal terms. So you know the business world, you know the potential risk, so those risks have to be defined into legal terms. So again, in a summary, I would say around, don't go into contracting without escape and exit strategies around. I hope this point is clear to all of you. Now the module what we are going to talk about is, today's presentations will help you to understand the successful contract implementations. Because if you are a good contract manager, chances of errors are less. I'm not saying zero, but they're mitigated. But if you're not a good contract manager, then certainly chances are there it will fail. Then to form the contract management team, you have to form a team for this, develop contract management plans, deal with the changes around. The changes could come from the suppliers. How do I deal with them? They want to change the quantity around. I want to change the quantity. I want to change this. There are potential risks around. The items are coming from X country, let's say Thailand, there's a flood there. How does it affect my delivery? All those factors have to be dealt around. Use key indicators to monitor the contract performance. Now the question comes, what are the key indicators around? Am I able to have a scorecard for this? Can I build a scorecard to check the performance of the vendors around? Then the contract review reports are there around, deal with the claims and disputes around. So the disputes and claims are a very tricky part. This is how we have to do around. These claims could be on intellectual properties, claims could be on real legal disputes around, claims could be on the items is totally broken, claims could be the goods were coming, the ship is sunk, who's going to bear the losses? All those things are there around. So in short, let me go back again. Managing a contract, the introduction is closely following and monitoring implementation so that you can take immediate actions when problem occurs and when situation changes. You're not doing on a reactive basis, you're doing on a proactive basis around. If I'm a contract manager, I can see on a daily basis, I can see the next week, I can see the next month, what possibility could going to happen. Is the contract going as per my plan? If it is not going as per your plan, certainly, then you can take some actions. You can take necessary actions around. If that path is not working, you will take a different path. You will change the contractors so that at the end of the day, my critical path is not affected. So the good thing about good contract management is you can avoid unexpected costs, delays, and poor quality. So there's another term which here is around is the contract administration. There's a term called contract management, there's a contract called contract administration. The word administration is a very bureaucratic word, administer. So word administration is purely ensuring compliance. Management is much bigger terms around, it covers many things around. So it is not, while the administration part is what was defined, is it being administered in the same way or not? So contract administration is a part of contract management. If I go back 25 years back, there was no word contract management. It was called contract administration. So administration was ensuring these are the points, these are my dots. Have you taken care of these dots? If not, you are not doing administration. But now it goes more than that. So this is where the contract management comes around. So contract management is a bigger word. That's the way I look at it. Now forming the contract management committees around. Certainly when you're doing contract management, I know many of the companies, there may be one person who's dealing with it. But if you're dealing with a much bigger complex projects, I'm dealing with hydro projects around, I'm dealing with thermal power projects around, I'm dealing with a nuclear plant, I'm dealing with infrastructures, I'm dealing with a lot of EPC projects around, and the project's values are very high. One person can't do contract management. Reason being, subject is so complex. Some subject, you need different people's skills around. So you need people of different background. So one could be who could come on the arm's length. Relationship require people are good at applying contract law. You'll find in the contract management team, some are damn smart people. They know how to interpret legally around. And they keep the supplier at arm's length. They're wonderful people. You need those people as well. But then there are other people who are smart enough who know how to carry the people around. See, contract management is not purely legalistic. If I'm dealing a big contract of $40, $50 million, big infrastructure, I need a person who's a lawyer who understands how to find the faults around, but I also need a person who knows how to carry the people around, who has the people skill around. It's a combination of two people I need around, not one type alone. Now the type of experience, the type of skills, the type of competency we need in these people who are contract managers. I'm not saying that people can't be trained, people can be trained. Nothing is born per se. I mean, there are some people who are by nature those gifted things, but people can be trained, people can be built up. First thing is communicator. Wonderful communicators. If you feel something is wrong, don't keep to your chest. I know some people, they go on grumbling inside, but they don't tell the supplier around, and that's where they fail around. They think, oh, this guy is bad, this guy is bad. But that doesn't work. Tell on the face, guy, I'm not happy. So then the supplier also knows very well, this man tells the truth, straight on the face. So the good communicator has to be there around. Relationship builder has to be there around. So one day you are a good communicator, but other day if the guy is doing good job, praise the guy as well. So it's a good relationship, good interpersonal skills around, able to focus on issues, understand to the depth of it, and not personality. Should not go with the personalities of people around. Whether the person comes and salutes the guy or not doesn't make a difference. What you need is understand on the issues as well. I know sometimes we get biased. If somebody praises you, think, oh, this is a great guy. It doesn't help. Then comes, has a working knowledge and of the technical issues, has to understand technical knowledge. It's not only the people person, has to know the technical as well. He's a person who's respected, influential, politically also aware what to say and what not to say. Because in India, I think the political, you can't be ignorant on that part around. So when you're dealing with contract management, you have to understand that part as well. Knowledge of risk management techniques, knowledge of contract law, the legally you should be strong, what it means. You should be able to interpret correctly and have a bigger picture. So you have to have, when I'm dealing a big contract, suppose I'm dealing with a thermal power station, I'm dealing with a nuclear power plant, I'm the director for that. I have to have bigger pictures. What I can compromise, what I can't compromise. Some things are no compromise at all. It affects the human life of the people. So that's where you need to be aware about is the bigger pictures. Skilled in project management techniques. Nowadays, very popular. Many people are getting into this certification also on project management. So those who are really managing the big projects, even if I have to implement ERP, you have to understand the PMI techniques around how to manage a project of $20 million, $30 million, how to do it. And has to be a skilled negotiator, should have the good skills how to negotiate as well. Now come the issues on what are the tasks in the contract management. I mean, I've given you a little bit flavor already on this. The very first thing comes is the contract changes. Nothing is stable. If the contract is going to last for 1 year, 2 years, if the contract is for 1 week, 2 weeks, is a different story. I'm talking of the complex projects now. It's going to last for 1 year, 2 years. Certainly there are going to be changes. Now whether those changes are good for you or bad for you, you have to interpret. But those are bound to be there. You have to manage it. And those changes when happen, there's a risk also with that. So risk management has to be done. manage the vendor performance, resolve the disputes if any dispute happens, ensures the timely delivery around. If the delivery is delayed, it has to do that part. Inspection all the way through and through, and side-by-side acceptance has to go. Manage the invoices, payment process. Keep in mind, the carrot keeps the things go. So you have to go on making the payments also if the contract requires around. If you are delaying the payment, then the other guy is going to be slower. So you have to give both things parallelly. Then document decisions and events, and close out. At the end of the day, you close out and terminate the contracts around. So this is in broad, gives you the flavor of the activities, what contract management does around. While contract administration is purely ensuring compliance, nothing more than that. They don't look on the left and right. These guys, they look only in the box what the contract says, while the contract manager goes even outside the box, tries to see what is in for us. Now once the contract is completed, then beyond that, what do we look at is, obviously you might have got the bidding, you might have got some performance guarantees around, you might have got bid guarantees around, all those bonds, guarantees have to be given back. And then they make the final payment. You might have paid the supplier in phased manner, on the milestone basis. So the last payment also has to be done around. In case there are warranty claims, this has to be handled around. And tomorrow for audit purpose, you have to keep the files minimum for 5 years. So abroad it is 7 years. Here in India it is 5 years around. You have to keep the documentation for 5 years around. Now when we say of disputes, I'm just giving a quick definition of this one around. It's a disagreement, nothing more than that, between the customer and the supplier regarding the rights and obligation of the parties under the contract. So those have to be written very clearly. Even the how you write is very important around. Whether you use the word shall, whether you use the word will, whether I use the word should, it makes a big legal difference. Shall is legally binding. Will mean no, I may go this way, I may go that way. So that the wording, the way it is written down, the way it is spelled out is very meaningful. So that's what I think you have to learn around how to write the contract around. So even when you are trying to make your organizations liable for something, don't say my organization shall provide this. You have to write will. But if you're writing the supplier, then you have to say shall. So you have to understand the English word. I know in equivalent Hindi we don't have those words. In English, each word has a meaning. So legally it conveys different message around. Now when we come to dispute resolutions, all of you know litigation. We need a judge, we need jury, which could take years and years. Private sector can't wait for litigations. If private sector has to wait for 10 years, the company is closed down. So they normally encourage arbitrations, mediations, negotiations. So arbitration is becoming very popular around. And I remember I did work for one of the company called Flextronic. It's an American company in Chennai. Where all arbitrations are done on Singapore. So it depends. If it's a domestic contract, then you do the arbitration within India. We follow the Indian Arbitration Act. But if the company is foreigners, they don't normally go with the people who do the arbitration are the same Indian people. But the venue is given is Singapore, others, so there's no influence on them around. That's the way it goes on. Now coming back to the amendment to the contracts around. Now amendment to contract, obviously as I said to you, it happens, changes, modifications. The type of amendment could be changes in the schedule of deliveries. You say, okay, instead of first week, second week, my so-and-so was sick, my wife was not well, I could not attend to it, I need another 1 week, I need another 2 weeks. That's bound to happen around. Change in quantities, my raw material which I was importing has not come, I don't have something, there was a fire in my warehouse, I can't give you full quantity, I'll give you less quantity now. Changes in terms of payments, this will happen very commonly. Initially the supplier will agree, but later on when the guy has done half the job, then the guy knows very well you are in their hands. Then they will dictate you, sorry sir, if you don't give me money, I can't buy. I don't have money to buy the raw material, the work will get stuck. And they know very well after half the job is done, We are not going to leave the supplier. So supplier will come and try to force you change the terms of payments. Then the inspection arrangements, who does the inspection? Is the third party, is the internal party? Who does it? Or should I depend on supplier? Supplier give me self-certified inspections around. So those are the modalities around. Now, the other issue which come up in the contract manager is, as a buyer, you might have given them some assets around. You might have given them the design, you might have given, let's say you're setting up a thermal power station, you're giving them the design, you're giving them the whole thing around. But later on you want them back because you don't want those information to go out. You might have given some tools to them, you might have given some computers to them. Those have to be given back to your office. And then the next question comes is payment to the supplier. Normally I would say it should be, as per the payment term, should be on completion. But for the big project, I can also understand around if the project is a 4 years, 5 years, the poor guy is not going to spend money for 5 years, then wait for 1 year to get the payments around. So they expect in the milestone basis around. As we said earlier, the vendor performance monitoring is very important. The vendor performance, how do you check it? In terms of qualities, in terms of deliveries, in terms of quantity, in terms of after-sales service, in terms of installation and commissioning. You really need to record them, give them some scoring based on that, whether this vendor is rated as 1, rated as 5, with scale of 1 to 5, where do you rate them? So the rating has to be done, monitoring has to be done, so the next time when you're trying to deal with those people who are rated very low, you may not even use them next time. Or if the performance was really bad, you may like to blacklist them. So this is where the vendor performance monitoring has to be there. Now coming back to the closure of the contract, obviously when the contract is complete, the purchase file has to be kept for 5 years. Now the contract closeout, I think I have already touched, maybe I can skip this part. Now delays and extension of the contracts around. Now this delay part is very critical and we're going to touch on this, particularly the liquidated damages around. The period of delay, is it 1 week, is it 2 weeks? That could happen around. But in principle, if time is the essence of the contract, no delay. And if you have spelled it out in the contract, time is the essence of my contract, any delay means there's going to be damages around. Certainly when delay means there's some damages around. And who pays for it? The supplier part pays it. I get into this little more in the next slides around. Delivery schedules, they want to change it. If you agree, then there's no problem. But if you don't agree, the supplier has to pay some penalties on that word around. The word penalty has gone. In the common law, word penalty is not used actually. I know in the normal word we say penalty, but technically what we say is it has to be qualified. How much is the damage upfront, and then later on if it happens, the supplier has to give. Extension of deliveries, extension of delivery period in the entire. If I'm buying a bulk items, you are buying say 10,000 items, there's a 1 delivery period and you want to extend it. It could be again those contracts which are swearable mean in piecemeal. You'll say, okay, every month I want 1,000 computers. That means the whole contract has been split into month by month. So those are swearable. I mean you can split them into parts around. So that's what we call as swearable. The next comes the breach of contract and remedies. Now, as I said to you, in case the contractor is unable to honor, unable to follow the guidelines given in the contract, stipulation given in the contract, that means the breach has happened. Stipulation could be with the payment terms, stipulation could be with the delivery, stipulation could be with service level agreement, stipulation could be for quality, stipulation, anything. So those things, if they don't happen, then we call them the breach of contract has happened. So keep the word, remember the word breach of contract. Once a breach of contract happens, you can send a show cause notice to the contractors for remedies. You can terminate for defaults. Termination is, in addition to termination, what you can do is performance security you have. You can say, guys, sorry, you're not performing as was stipulated. The company loses the performance security. procuring from alternative sources, and suppose you file this guy is not able to do it, you went on giving liquidated damage, it's gone to 10%, you terminate the contract, then you go to another ones, and then certainly the second one is having a higher price of 10%, that difference of price you will claim from the first one. You will say, because of you, I have to go to the second vendor whose price is 10% more, so that difference has to come from you guys. So this is how, these are other methods also available. Termination for insolvency. The company has become insolvent. Their debts are more. They can't survive. Their cash crunch is become insolvent. If it has become insolvent, certainly in those cases you will terminate it. The last one is termination for convenience. As the name indicates, convenience. Whose convenience? I'm not saying the convenience of the seller is the convenience of the buyer. Now as a buyer, you have your projects. Your management says, okay, we are going to work on this project on implementing e-procurement. But then suddenly after 2 months, the big boss comes, sorry guys, we don't have funds. This is not our top priorities. Please terminate the contract and cancel the contract. Supplier might have started working on it already. So I'm not saying the termination for convenience is the easy way. It looks very convenient. But keep in mind, if supplier has already started working on it, they can claim the damages for that. So it is, the name is convenient, that you can conveniently terminate it, but if the supplier has bought the raw material, supplier has hired the people around, you can't, they can make a claim from you as well. Look at the remedies part when they come to this. There's a buyer, there's a seller. What are they doing? Seller is giving the goods to you. The buyer is giving the payment to the seller. So keep the relation is this, and behind the relation, you have the total legal documents around. Now the breach of contracts, what type of breach of contract could happen? It could be non-performance. The guy is not performing. So certainly performing means not doing, I'm not saying that, I'm saying you wanted 10 kilometers of road to be made every day. The guy instead of 10 kilometers only making 1 kilometer road every day. You are asking the guys to give you 100 computers per day, and he says, okay, I can give you only 10 computers per day. So that's what it means, non-performing. Delayed performance. Delayed means something was to be done by end of the week. It lingers on, some reason, that reasons. You know, in the business world, somebody has to pay the price. I mean, reasons are all understandable, but then they have to pay the price for it. Delayed performance part. And lastly, the defective performance. The guy has done the job, but is all defective. Is not meeting the expectations. It is not meeting the expectations of you. This is where the word excellence. I know yesterday we had a workshop with Microsoft and we were discussing on the procurement excellence. And we were discussing what is the meaning of excellence. Take it from me, everybody has a different meaning around it. What is excellence? Everybody has this. Here also use the same word excellence. You have some expectations. You are the buyer. You are on the driving seat. You have some expectations, and those expectations have been put into writing. Sometimes we are very poor in writing what we want. We know what we want, but we can't write what we want. Our specs are very poor. So those expectations versus what the supplier is giving to you, if supplier is not able to meet with your expectation, it's not an excellent job then. It's a poor job. Now, then there are, as we said earlier also, what are the buyer's remedy for seller breach? If the seller is breaching it, what are the remedies? And if buyer is breaching, as a buyer, you may be breaching also. You're not making payment in time. So what are the seller's remedies? So we need to know both sides. So let me walk through those breach of contracts. The very first one is the seller's breach. Non-performance. The buyer may avoid the contract and claim damages. The buyer may ask for specific performance. The buyer may cover and claim damages around. So this is what it goes on. Delayed performance. The buyer may give it grace period sometime. But I'm sure being in the public sector, those who are from the public sector, they have to get approval from the competent authority also. You can't just say, okay, sorry, I give you another 1 week. So in the public sector, you have to get in writing from your competent authorities, can I authorize 1 more week or not? Even if the grace period is given, the seller does not perform within the period, then the breach is really fundamental. And the buyer may avoid the contract and claim damages for that. The next thing is defective performance. The buyer may reject the non-conforming goods and ask the seller to deliver conforming goods. The buyer may ask the seller to repair the non-conformity. It's not matching. You wanted a dimension of 3 meters by 2 meters, but the guy has given you 3.2 and this side he has given you 2.2 meters. It's not meeting with the requirements around. I'm buying rice or wheat, I want a moisture content of 10%, and the guy has given you 12% moisture content. Ash content is more in the wheat and rice. So certainly they don't meet your expectations. Now the buyer may say, okay guys, I'll reduce the price. But if the former 3 remedies are not available, the buyer must avoid contract and claim damages around. Now the next come remedies for seller. I mean, we can't always be one track side. Guys, we only need remedies because we are on the driving side, yes. But let me also touch on the seller side, although it is not in the book, because some of the things I'm covering here, I'm touching more from my experience from the private sector. I know in the public sector, we are always driving side. We don't even listen to the other side. The guy can't even take us to the court around. But while in the private sectors, we can't be immune fully. In government is always immune. Nobody can drag them to the court. So, but I think we need to know what are the remedies for the sellers around. The seller may grant the buyer a grace period. Seller may ask for specific performance for make payments around. Seller may resell the goods. You say, guys, you're not picking up my goods. I can't keep a stock of this. They may resell the goods around this. And then the difference, if there is anything around, they could ask the buyer. The seller may avoid contracts and claim damages directly. I know in the public sector I have rarely seen, but legally they are liable. Let me make very clear. They are not in a VIP category. I know so far many countries they think they are the VIP category. In the public sector also, they are liable to, for the claims from the seller as well. So you have to be careful when you are making changes around, and they could also make claims. Now this question comes very oftenly. We always use the word penalize somebody, but in the legal system, the word penalty nobody understands. The lawyers understand, the legal system understand, was it liquidated in advance or not? Liquidated means it was calculated. Well friend, I'm giving you a contract, my delivery period is 2 weeks, I want in 2 weeks, because my time is a sense of the contract, and that delay could make a damage of so much financially to me, plus notionally to me also. Financially mean if I delay by 2 weeks to 3 weeks, I have to deliver the goods. My assembly line may get stopped. My production line may get disrupted. And even if it is not disrupted, a further delay from my side could change my image, my brand. So notionally also I could ask for the claims around. So compensation of loss due to delay in delivery. This could be financial as well as notional, as I said to you. The claim can't exceed the value of the contract. Keep that factor in mind. There's a distinction between penalty and LD, but nowadays under the new act, I think the word penalty has been removed. It is the same thing. The government department undertaking contract should not be dealt with an ordinary contract. In case of development educational contract, liquid damages does not applicable. If you're giving educational contract to someone to develop your study material, in those situations you can't. And even if you're getting from the government department, say one government department giving a contract to another public sector undertaking, no liquidated damages. Because within the government body, they think the money is coming from one pocket to another pocket. So the government cannot charge liquidated damages from one government body to another government body, but certainly from the private sector. Normally the guidelines are, it is left to you, your past practices around. The liquidated damages, in short I'm calling LD, could be 0.5% per week. And this could change every week around, so 2 week mean becomes 1%. When it comes to 10%, you could terminate the contract. Now, waiver of liquidated damage is an exception. Keep that factor in mind. If some of you is giving waiver, I would say again, you have to see whether you have authority or not. If not, get the approval done from your competent authority. I will use this word competent very oftenly because in public sector it all revolves around that. In private sector is a different ball game. If I'm in a private sector, I could take the decision to the best of my knowledge. I won't be dragged up. While in the public sectors, keep the factor in mind. Any change you're doing around, do get approvals from the competent authority. There's another word called denial clause. Now the delay in delivery is default by seller, but there could be extra, suppose the things are delayed now. One is the liquidated damages. The guy was supposed to give you things by 31st of March, doesn't deliver you by 31st March, gives you by end of April, but during the time the budget has come, the prices have shooted up. The supplier can't charge you for that. You're denying that. Say, guys, well, you have to pay the liquidated damages charges, but don't ask me to pay for your price escalation because of budget or because of this. So there is a denial on that part. So the denial clause has to be there around. And there could be also, your currency may change up and down. So you will be very happy, I got a liquidated damages. You may be tapping at your back, but then the guy is smart enough, they'll send a note to you, sorry guys, now the rupee has become weaker, you have to pay me more, or the dollar has become stronger, more or less, whichever may be. It could be other trip also around. Your currency might have become stronger versus the imported things around. They may ask you for that part, they may not give it to you the benefit. They give you the liquidated damages, but you have to claim for the currency also. You have to claim for both currency and the price variation. So price variation, suppose if I give a contract for a year to make the highway around, and within a year the steel prices have gone down, cement price have gone down, the guy can't take me for a ride. So on the contrary, one side I claim the liquidated damages, I also claim the price variation if prices have gone down. If price has gone up, I don't pay. If it goes down, I claim. So both sides you have to keep the factors in mind around. There's another one called option clause. So do look at it in your contract whether you have an option clause. And now this is very, very important for the public sector. Private sector doesn't make a big difference. Because in private sector I can always piggyback on my old contract. In governments, you made a contract. I remember one workshop I was doing of SHM. One army guy was there. He said, we placed an order for 60,000 tires. And then suddenly we found we need 10,000 more around. Now for 10,000, if the poor guy has to go through the bidding exercise again, it'll take you another 3 months. The cost of that is too much. So what we allow in the public sector is 25% of the original quantity you could change it. But before the delivery date of the contract, at the same terms and conditions, same payment price around. So keep in mind 25% of that you could change around. But you have to keep in mind, supplier is dealing first time with you, they don't know it. So you have to put down this, that you have a right to change the quantity by 25%. Both way, down and up. So the above clause should be covered in the contracts around. Now the option clause is no declining trend in prices. Normally exercised only in later part of the contract, that is after receipt of 50% quantity. You will not say, okay, now you place an order today and this contract delivery was supposed to come in 3 months. Then after 1 week, you say, I changed the quantity by 25%. No. Because that means mentally you are intentionally splitting the contract. You know very well in the public sectors, we have a threshold. Sometimes what the big director thinks, okay guys, let me split the contract because this is within my authority. The moment I do the total thing, it has to go to a bigger boss. So you split the contract around, which we don't encourage. So we say, guys, do it. So if you want to make amendments, then do it after 50% delivery has been done. So that way you keep in mind, not take the right other way around. So it has to be done before last date of this round. Now coming to the dispute resolutions part, normally there should be no scope for any disputes. That's a very practical, but in reality it doesn't happen around. I mean, there's one road I know which is going on, which is going for the last 8 years. I mean, I don't want to tell the name, I'm sure many people may know it. For the last 8 years that contract is going on. It was supposed to be completed in 2 years. And 8 years it has gone through 4 amendments. Started with $100 million, is already gone up to $700 million. Now who got the benefits around? You know better than me. So keep in mind, we always start with a good base, but sometimes something goes beyond us. Could be for many reasons. I don't want to get into discussion on those. But due to unforeseen reasons, problems of all natures, problems may arise during the progress of the contract. Parties may try to resolve the disputes around amicably by mutual consultations. If it doesn't happen within 21 days, you have to give a notice to commence arbitration. I know some companies, they use only the legal system. It goes into their favor. If I'm a company and I'm giving I'm with the government, I know I can take it to the court, and court mean I can drag it on for next 10 years. And by the time I'll cover my cost. So, but in the private sector, no. It's all arbitration. Within 21 days, arbitration starts around. So I would say in public sector also, nobody stops you to have arbitration. So if you feel that you want to take the benefit of arbitration, use it. Don't go with applicable law of India so and so, the arbitration part. And you know the applicable law of India dates back to 1896. I know amendments have gone through, but it's again colonial type law. So my request to you is, even in the public sectors, you can use arbitration. Nobody stops you on that. If it's a local supplier, Indian Arbitration Conciliation Act of 1996 will apply. And if it is foreign company, they, as I told you, they use UNCITRAL, United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. So the venue for that has to be neutral country. You don't want to be biased. It has to be totally neutral country. As I said to you, many cases in the private sector I've seen, it happens in Singapore. So this is where in majority cases, even if you look at all the MNC's company, at the back they write down in the very small words, arbitration venue would be so and so. Now coming to the handling of claims and resolving the disputes part. You may have to deal with the claims. It happens. As I told you, one contract, which is a real case, I know about it, from 100 million to 700 million, going for the last 8 years. And this will happen. If something was to be done in 2 years, you take 8 years. And particularly in the real estate business infrastructure, the prices shoots up. There are unforeseen costs around, dispute over the contract clauses around. This is where I feel the contract should be really discussed line by line upfront. Sometimes we feel the supplier is very eager to get the business. They'll say, tell me, where do you want me to sign? They'll sign. But later on, when they become a little smarter, then they come and say, you cheated me. So you have to go line by line, tell the guy in front of the group, this is what it means. So I think it's a wonderful way to walk through it. So that's the way to go it. Disputes over what is included in the price, the breach of the contract. In case of problems, which will happen. But again, as I said to you in the beginning, you need to be a people person. Some people are damn smart, they know how to manage it. Some people will just fight it out. Then you are reaching nowhere except the courts. So you have to find ways how to handle the person, how to manage the person. Now the contract terminations, if no signs of improvements are there, certainly you're going to reach the termination part. Now we have done the whole legal part, and the legal part is much bigger, the contract management part. I think we touched in one of the module already on the legal framework, but if you require, I can do it separately, because when we do it for the private sector, we do it basically 2 days, 3 days, full workshop on legal implications. I do plan to do one webinar on this in future sometime. So those who have interest in the subject, to me, every procurement person must know the legal side. So it's a wonderful way. So I will be doing some separately. But for your course content, I think this is good enough. For those who are doing PDPP, Diploma in Public Procurement, this is good enough. But those who are trying to understand much more, I do plan to do later on one separate session only on legal implications. Because that's what I did many times in the United Nations. So I have that documentation, we'll work on it. Now you're done through this around. The next thing comes, obviously, the receipt of goods around. Now the receipts of the goods storekeeper gets, they will just collect the 5 boxes, 10 boxes, they'll come up around, they'll say subject to inspection. They give you good receipt note, GRN. But the storekeeper has not looked into the quality. Storekeeper has not looked into the quantity. They have only seen 3 boxes. As per the invoice, as per the documentations, there are 4 boxes. They say, okay, 4 boxes. What is inside? Is it correct? Is it the correct quantity? Is the correct quality? No. So then the preliminary inspection is checked for physical look and quantity. Then the detailed inspection is the one you will do it. Check the specification. You need the right expert for that. Now the whole receipt good accountant, if I look around, this accountant word, I was trying to do some research on. This is coming from only in the railways. They use the word accountant. Nowhere else I have used in the public sectors. This word, this terminology, accountant, you will not see in the dictionary as well. So this is the term I see from the railways. They use it very oftenly, this word. Now receipt note after goods are received, pass the quantity and quality. So that we call receipt note. GRN, understand the differences around. GRN is only receipt of correct quantity. Rejection advice is this. Within 21 days, this is what you do. Then the modes of inspections. Certainly you could have pre-shipment inspections. You're buying some medical items. You're buying some pharmaceutical item. You're buying some complex material around. You want to see the composition. You want to see how the process is going on. So at the manufacturing stage, from the raw material till end of it, you want to check the inspections around. That's what we call pre-shipment inspection. Then there's another one called inspection on delivery. This is mainly for off-the-shelf item. You're buying a generator, off-the-shelf item. You're buying a UPS, off-the-shelf item. You're buying computers, off-the-shelf items. Those could be done on delivery. You don't need to do a pre-shipment inspection. If I'm buying 10,000 computers, I'm not going to Dell in USA or Malaysia or India. Guys, I want to check your qualities around. The standard items, look at it, you do only the part. Sometimes we only say, as I said to computers even, you say, guys, they're well-known companies, good brand, quality self-certification is good enough. They're giving you warranty, that's good enough. You don't want to waste money on these things, other things around. Now people come, who inspects the goods around? Inspection could be done by internal inspection authorities, externals. Internal means I have expert in-house who goes and inspects it. But I don't have expertise, I take an out guy who does it. But in case there's a complaint, I'm not accepting, the supplier says, I'm not accepting your report is very biased. In those cases, we have joint inspection. There will be a person from the procurement agency, there will be a person from the supplier, plus a third expert, and they work together. Now steps for inspections, obviously you have to decide the sample size. Obviously you're not going to inspect each and every item. You're not going to drill each and every item and check the raw material composition of that. You will say sample size. If I'm getting a medical items, pharmaceutical drugs, you will say, okay, I'll take one lot of it. If a lot of 10,000 pieces, a lot of 100 pieces, I'll check each. Out of 100, I'll check one. Any random, you can check the sample size. In terms of compositions, in terms of qualities, I'm getting vaccines. You say, guys, out of 1,000 vaccine, one has to be tested, check for size. So that's the sample size you're deciding on. Now selecting representative samples, verification of well-defined criteria, that's very important around. Good packaging is very important around. You have to see It's done in a good package. I remember good old days when UNICEF used to buy some of the goods. They say, guys, even injections they're buying around, the packing was going a little sap angle. They say, good, bad quality around. The packaging has to be good. I'm getting a foil of drugs. It's not done well, packaging. The tablets are coming out. That means it's not properly packaged around. So the packaging is equally crucial around, because I'm going to store the items around. So I want a good packaging as well for that. Steps for pre-shipment inspections. Franking clause. I know these are little outdated words around, but I'm using it. I don't know, in public sector still goes on, the franking clause. Like a check in the good old days, you used to put a stamp and you frank it. Check has been encashed. Now even the bank also don't do the franking. But I know some companies, some in the public sector, they do the franking clause on acceptance. On the certificate, they have to put down, yes, accepted, with signs of the person, the name of the person, the title of the person, and the date of the. Same way when you're rejecting it, you have to frank it again. Approval of the acceptable deviations around. Now, this is one side of the public sector, the way it is. I'm not questioning it. But when I look from the private sector, and if you're having ERP, e-procurements, we need only three things: purchase orders, an inspection report, and invoice. The moment three things matches, payment goes. Now if I'm going to go through these type of things, who is going to enter it? I need one extra staff to enter it. So in the private sector, if I'm responsible for inspection, either my job is in or my job is out, I will put into the system, if I like the product, I'll press the button, I'll say inspected and found okay. And if I say okay, I'm accountable. End of the story. While in the public sector, I know we have many steps around. So when we come to e-procurement, I'm still struggling around to see. When we come to e-procurement in the public sectors, and I would like to hear from many of you, how do you put the inspection report into that? Are you going to make a report, download into the systems? It's becoming too complex to me. As I was telling you, we had a workshop yesterday with Microsoft. We're talking of e-invoicing even. We're talking of e-reporting, everything e. The word is revolving around e. E could be enabled, e could be electronic, whatever you may call it. So our concept is, even the invoice from the supplier should go straight to my system. I should not have a person to enter the invoice into the system. So the world is moving very fast if we want to be competitive in the global world. So this is little side thoughts, but in the public sector, I know this is still there. I'm to give you both the flavors on the both sides. Documentation for inspections. Certainly you have inspection notes, you have corrections, each inspection note. Then the last word is a very important, certified true copy. Sometimes the inspection report is lost because we give to the supplier. This is more like a degree, for the guy. I got a certified, is approved now. Because with that, the guy can go to accounts and get the payments around. And in case they have lost it, you should not give a certified true copy until you check from finance that no payment has been done. If payment is done, you can't give a certified true copies around. So keep that factor in mind. So this was the inspection part around. Now storage part, now I'm storing the goods. After storing, I have to issue them. I get an indent. I'm in a hospital. I get a request from the nurse. I want this item. I want this. Certainly I have to issue them. I have to keep a record of all them, receipt and issue. Housekeeping is very important so that no discrepancy happens around. If 20 pieces have gone out and I had received 100, I must have 80 pieces around. So housekeeping has to be kept and inventories control has to be done around, no discrepancies. That could be a nightmare. Somebody has to answer. If quantity is not matching, you are the storekeeper and things are not matching what is left and what is gone out. So it's a part of the inventory control. One has to ensure on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, depending on your complexities, inventory should be checked. That's the way it is around. So you know if there's a discrepancies, you can sort it out well in advance. Instead of coming after 1 year, yeah, I lost 10% of my inventory. In that situation, one will lose a job around. So I would say please check your inventories on a regular basis. This is where the computers can help a lot. So take care of that. Surplus management, sometimes things get obsolete. We are collecting the goods instead of using first in, first out. We follow instead of FIFO something else. So we give the older stuff is lying at the back, the new stuff is on the front, and we are issuing only the new stuff. Older stuff is getting obsolete. So take care of that. And then the verification part, the bin card, physical quantities part, quality assurance has to be there around. Now the payment is the last thing which I want to take up another 5-10 minutes, and then we could close this session. Now payment terms, obviously normally everybody says we'll pay you at the end of the job is done, but it doesn't happen reality part. You have to cover the milestones, you have to cover the currency, you have to cover the training costs. So the payment terms should address all this, should not be lump sum cost. So whenever you're getting a payment terms, ask the guy to give you in split. What is the cost of the price of the goods? What is the cost of installation? What is the training cost? What is the milestone payment? What are the currencies? And what is the exchange rate they're going to use around? Is it exchange rate the day they gave us the offer? Is it the exchange rate they delivered us? You have to keep that factor in mind. So that tomorrow there's no dispute and which exchange rate you're going to follow around, which X bank or the government exchange rate, or you're going to, if you're importing goods say from US, you will say I will use my bank exchange rates. So you have to really define whose exchange rates are there or not. Next comes sometimes you pay the advance payments. I know in the public sector it happens, the private I have rarely seen. If you pay advance payment and for advance payment you're charging interest rate. I've never seen in my life in the private sector, but in the public sector I know it happens. They charge you the interest. If they give you 20% advance, they charge you interest on that plus 2%. So this is how it is there around. So if the market, the State Bank of India lending rate is 10%, they will charge you 10 plus 2, 12% for the advance they are paid you. In short, they're giving you a loan actually. So, and that advance payment has to be adjusted later on with each payment. Final payments made after completion. Now, as I said to you in the beginning, variation clause could happen. Now, the variation could be in the price, exchange rates, and taxes. There are a lot of taxes in India. We have octroi, local tax, custom duty. We hope one day we'll have by next year GST. I'm willing to listen for today's what budget comes up. But once GST comes in, I think to a lot extent will streamline one tax for everything. So price variation formula should be the part of the contract in case the contract involves 25% or more of the import content. If the guy is in, let's say particularly medical items around, they import a lot of items around. I'm making X-ray machine. But 25% of these things are coming from abroad. And the guys who are making in India Mercedes car and this, 90% is coming from abroad. So it is in those situations, certainly the price could go up and down depending on the exchange rate. You need to define that. Terms of payments. Now the payments percentage can be linked to shipping terms. Now I know some of you guys might have attended my friends' previous sessions around on Incoterms. I think Ravi has covered on those, Ravi Chandran has covered on the Incoterms. Payment should be linked with shipping terms. I know in the book what you have, I'm going to get it amended because we are still using wrong Incoterms, free on rail, free on truck. Those are outdated. They don't exist in the international scenarios. So my interest is payment is always linked with the terms. I will take only one term. I know my colleague has touched it. If you're saying CIF, legally, the guy, the moment he gives you shipping documents, irrespective the goods have reached you or not, the guy can claim for the payments. And if your payment terms are 30 days, after receipt of shipping documents, you can't stop the payment legally. So keep in mind whether you receive the goods or not is the second part. The ship is sunk is second part. So my request to you is we have to follow. I know some of the people are not very knowledgeable on this, but nowadays the new generation of entrepreneurs, they're knowledgeable. They can fight with you. So try to understand what is legally allowed. So I'm not getting into the nuts and bolts of this. but my friend has already covered in the previous sessions. So in still any question, you can write to us and we'll be happy to answer those. Now in case of domestic goods, obviously the payment is done by check. Check is also becoming obsolete. Modi is all the time talking of cashless India. So we want to be cashless. I mean, we should always move with a card. And I was very happy when last week I was in Bangalore. I could go in a taxi, use my debit card. No cash to be paid around. So the world is moving very fast. So I think we have to become that way. It's all about electronic goods, electronic clearing system. Now for imported goods, obviously you have to follow the EXIM policy, you have to follow the FAMAs, no second thought. But keep in mind, letter of credit is still a very popular document for all importing. So letter of credit is very popular documents around, and I'll spend 2-3 minutes on that. What is letter of credit? What it covers around? So this is the scenarios around. Please look at it. And that's, I think, gives you the complete summary of this around. The very first thing is the order part. There are importer and exporters. Buyer or seller, you may call around. Since letter of credit is for import purpose, so I'm intentionally calling as exporter and importer, not buyer and seller. So you are the importer. Exporter is giving it to you. As an importer, you are giving to the exporter order for it. Exporter doesn't know you, doesn't have faith in you. Say, guys, give me the LC. If you are not assuring me letter of credit, I will not send my goods. So you can see in the number 1 is order. Number 2, you are applying for LC. So LC is going to your bank, your issuing bank. So my bank is, let's say, ICICI Bank. That's my issuing bank. Their bank could be Chartered Bank or whatever bank around. So my bank to their bank of the exporters, they will issue the LC. So once the LC is gone, exporter is convinced the money will come. But not that money will come based on some conditions. So those conditions has to be spelled it out when the letter of credit can be used, when it can be encashed. So that part has to be really defined out. Now the letter of credit by default is irrevocable. The two words you have to keep in mind. Revocable, irrevocable. Irrevocable means once it's gone, gone. Like a shot, it is gone. You can't take it back. You can't revoke it. You can't cancel it. If you cancel, there are going to be some penalties around. So keep in mind, it can't. But if you want to revoke it, you have a double thought and get it revoked in the beginning mentioned. This could be revoked in some special condition. So you have to mention, which 99% never happens. Then exporter is not going to listen to you, but until you are on a good friendly terms, maybe. So the letter of credit goes from your bank to that bank, and then from your bank, from their bank, it goes to the exporters. Now the things are being done. The guy has done the goods, the guy has done the documents, the guy has done things around. So when the goods are shipped, then I do the payments part, and when the payments are gone, so this is how the cycle goes on. So in short, I would say the supplier is assured by their bank through our bank the day the shipping documents comes, and if it complies with the requirements spelled in the bidding in the purchase order in the LC, they are bound to get the payments. So then in those situations, the payment goes. Keep in mind, when you're opening an LC, it costs you extra. It's not free. You know very well, bank doesn't do anything free. They have to pay salary to the staff. So if they open an LC, the staff is involved. So everything, every step they take, there's a money. So keep this factor in mind, letter of credit, letter of credit. But if you have a wonderful relation with supplier, it may work. I remember in the UN, we never issued any letter of credit. We say, guys, you have to believe on our credibility part. If you have doubt on our credibility, then yes. But if you feel that we are like Government of India, I would say it's credible. So if Government of India is placing an order, they sometimes should stop giving LCs. They say, guys, Government of India stamp is there. That should be more than the LC. Why waste 1 or 2% on LC making the LC? I know government still gives it, but if I have to look around in the UN, I have stopped it, government can also stop it. Particularly this government is strong enough, we could ask for it. In some banana republic, one could say, okay, I don't believe in this government. That's a different thing. But if the government is strong, they could say, guys, nothing good. So this gives you the steps of letter of credit. I think I've clarified major one, but you can walk through it. It gives you very good clarity on the letter of credit. And the documents also, we have touched on it. Well, friend, the journey on this contract management is over. I know there's a lot to be done on this. Maybe I touched the tip of the whole iceberg, but the journey, as I'm showing you, it moves on. So the journey is going on. With this, I want to thank you all for the patient hearing. Now, if any questions, clarifications, please shoot down. Either you raise your hand or